Movie buffs, welcome back to the Movie Bay. In this episode, we are going to discuss reboots, remakes versus originals. Now, the movie could come from a TV show, which it can be a reboot or a remake of a TV show. More or less, if it's a movie that's coming from a TV show, it's a reboot. It's just trying to reboot the franchise. So what's the difference, in my humble opinion, between a reboot and a remake? I think a reboot is just something new to reboot, to re-energize that franchise, maybe take it in a slightly different direction, but still staying somewhat true to the roots of the original source material, where a remake is a total ground-up remake of the original story, characters. Everything is pretty much the same, just modernized. Now, there's a lot of films as of late, because I think Hollywood has just flat out run out of good ideas or good talent, that there's a ton of reboots and remakes coming out. And there's a lot of confusion about what is a reboot versus a remake. I think if you're going into a remake with the expectation of a reboot, you're going to be disappointed, vice versa. So let's take a look at some, sorry about that, guys. Let's take a look at some popular reboots, remakes, and we're going to talk about it now. I got quite a few to get through. I just took some from my collection. I didn't take them all because we would be here all day. So real quick, we're going to take a look at some of the stuff that I pulled from the collection. We're just going to discuss them briefly. So let's take a look at, the first one we're going to take a look at is the Omen. So we're going to take a look at the Omen. Now this one is the complete set, but for the sake of the video, we're going to talk about the first Omen movie versus this is a remake. This stays very true to the source material of the first movie. It's just updated for modern times with a few changes. Of course, the effects is going to be a little bit better. Some of the jump scares is a little bit better. Me personally now, you won't hear me say this a lot throughout this video. This remake, because this is a remake, this is not a reboot. This remake is better than the original because it's more modern. I like the actors. I like Liv Schreiber. I like the way this one went, and went pretty good. However, this original was fantastic. All four of these were pretty good. So this is an example of a reboot. I'm sorry, a remake versus the original, where I think the remake is actually better than the original. But it also stayed very true to the source material. If you disagree with that, drop a line down in the comments. So that is the Omen. This is a remake to the original Omen. The original Omen is on here. Both are fantastic movies. I just think the remake did a little bit better. So that's that one. Next up, we're going to take a look at a three-way. We got a three-way split here. We're going to discuss all three of these. So we have Superman the movie, the original Superman the movie, okay, with Christopher Reeves. We have, this is Superman Returns. His name is Brandon Roth, I do believe his name is. And then we have Man of Steel with Henry Cavill. So let's go ahead and dive in these real quick. So right off the bat, Superman Return is a reboot. This is rebooting the franchise. It's not remaking it. It's a reboot. Man of Steel is a reboot as well. It's taking the franchise in a different way. This didn't try to remake any of the movies that came before it, and it's not true to the source material of this movie or this movie. It is a totally different movie, and it's taking the Superman movies in a different direction. So this would be a reboot. This guy here would also be a reboot. It's not going in the same direction. This one is a reboot because it's not a remake, because this is basically Superman went on a hiatus to discover another world, another Krypton. He just went to go do his own thing for a few years, and he came back to Earth. So definitely a reboot. Now, out of the three, which one do I think is better out of these three films? Superman, the movie, is fantastic. Gene Hackman is a legend. Christopher Reeves, I mean, you got a great talented cast in this movie. This movie got a lot of flack, and I don't know why. I thought it was really good. I think Kevin Spacey did a wonderful job. I think this guy right here, Brandon Roth, I think he did a good job. I think he's a dead ringer for Reeves. He looks just like the guy. His mannerisms, everything was just his stage presence. All of that was just there. Man of Steel. This one got some flack too. And to be honest with you, I don't know why it got flack. It was good. Now this one, again, people are going into these movies with the wrong expectation. This was a reboot. This was a reboot. It was not a remake. It was doing its own thing, and I think it did a really good job. This movie was fantastic. You had a great cast. Henry Cavill, Russell Crowe, just to name a few. So, now, is any of these better than this? And the answer to that is yes and no, because they're actually not trying to remake this one. They're just rebooting the franchise. So all three of these are a win because, to me, in my opinion, these two are really good reboots. If either one of these was remakes, then we could probably criticize them a little bit harder. But because they're reboots, I'm going to give them a pass. And let's answer the question real quick that everybody keep asking. Is Man of Steel better than Superman Returns? I'm going to say yes. Man of Steel is definitely a better movie than Superman Returns. Superman, like I said, I didn't have a problem with Superman Returns. I thought it was a good movie. But Man of Steel was better. It was definitely a better movie. Let's take a look at a classic here. I'm trying to keep these movies from sliding on the floor, guys. I'm sorry about that. We got Dawn of the Dead, the George A. Romero, and then we have the remake. Now, this is another one where the remake is better than the original. Reasons for is just, I think the casting is better on this one. I think the flow of the movie is better. Not to say that this one was bad. This one was fantastic. It's just this was better. It had a lot more elements to it. Of course, the fact that it's a big gap between, let's see, this one came out in, well, this one is old school right here. This one came out a long time ago, and this one isn't that old. I'm going to go ahead and just give the win to Dawn of the Dead. This one is the unrated director's cut. This is a much better film than this one. This is a good film, but until this one came along, this was the better film. This one is definitely better. I recommend you see both. If you saw the original, you want to check out this remake. This is a definite remake. This is not a reboot. This is a remake to this one. So go ahead and check these two out. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at, we're going to take a look at a cartoon here. Now, of course, I don't have the original He-Man and the Masters of the Universe series. Not to say that you can't get it, I just don't have it. This is leaps and bounds better than the original. This actually gives you Skeletor's origins. This shows you where Skeletor came from, and that's something we didn't know before. The art that they used, the animation was just fantastic. I mean, this is good. Now, they rebooted He-Man before, and it wasn't that good, but this one was fantastic. If you can get your hands on He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, if you can get the complete series, go for it, especially if you can get it for a good price. This is the first 10 episodes. This is the origin plus 10 episodes. So this here is 11 episodes. The origin is being pretty long, the pilot episode. Check this one out. If you was a fan of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe back in the 80s, you will love this. It paid a lot of respect and homage to the original source material. This is what you would call a complete remake. This isn't rebooting, this is remaking the original. Next up, we're going to take a look at Child's Play remake. This is actually a reboot because it's taking the series in a different direction. So this isn't a remake. This is a reboot. Okay, so you got the original Child's Play. This is the 7-movie set. We're going to put this one down to focus on this one. This one is totally different, but it does pay some respect to the source material with the doll being called Chucky and the boy being Andy. So that's pretty much where the similarities kind of end, with the doll named Chucky and the boy named Andy. Everything else is totally different. So this is a remake. I mean, a reboot. This reboots this franchise into a different direction, because the biggest element with this one is the doll is not possessed by a spirit like Chucky was in the original 7 films. He was possessed. This guy is a piece of defective AI, basically. In the beginning of the film, somebody who was the electronic engineer who was responsible for setting all the protocols in this doll, he screwed up to get back at the company that he worked for, and he took all the safeties off the doll. So the doll was able to learn a lot of things and do a lot of things, and it's Wi-Fi, it's digitally connected, all of that good stuff that goes along with it. So this is one reboot. This is one reboot that I think is not, it's not better than the original. It pays some respect to the source material, but this is definitely not a remake. This is a reboot, because it's taking the franchise in a different direction. Remember, guys, remakes will remake the original source material and stay very true to it. Reboots will pay some homage to the original source material, but take it in a different direction. And I think that's what this one is doing. Hopefully they do put out a part 2 to this one, because it was really good. All right. Next up, we're going to take a look at the Nightmare on Elm Street versus the original Nightmare on Elm Street. So we have the Nightmare on Elm Street reboot that came out. This one came out, I think this one came out about maybe, let's take a look here, guys. This one came out, they used to put the year very prominent, 2010, okay? So this one is about almost 10 years old versus the original that came out in the 80s. Now, this is the Nightmare on Elm Street collection, but we're going to talk about the first movie for the sake of this one. So let's talk about this remake. It really wasn't scary. Now, those of you who know anything about Nightmare on Elm Street, the first Nightmare on Elm Street was scary as hell for the times. It's not scary now if you look at it. It looks kind of cheesy, but when this came out in 1980, I want to say this came out in 1984. So this one here, the actor, the guy who played Freddy Krueger, was just off. Was just not right for the character, not right for the role. It didn't have it. There's so many things I could point out about this movie to say it didn't have it. Me personally, I think they should have waited to do this movie. Now, right about now, probably would have been a good time to really get serious about casting this particular film. Robert Englund, of course, he probably could have did it, but let's face it, Robert Englund is a little bit up there in age. And now, 10 years ago, he might have been able to pull it off, might have. But now, he'd be even 10 years older than what he was, so I don't know about him doing it. But this is one that I would like to see get a total ground-up reboot. Okay, actually, not a reboot. I want this to be remade, but I want some different elements to be put into it. This one did a pretty good job with the origin story. It wasn't all bad. It just wasn't, in my opinion, very true to the source material. This is definitely one that's not better than the original. So this is the Nightmare on Elm Street reboot. Reboot? Is this a reboot or a remake? This is a remake. This is a remake to the original. It's got some good points to it. I like the origin part of it. And that's about it. The Freddy Krueger just didn't look right. It didn't do it. So I'm going to give this one a fail when it comes to being better than the original source material. Next up, we're going to take a look at, I know you guys been dying for this one. In fact, I'm going to save that one. I'm going to make you guys wait for that one. Let's take a look at The Equalizer 1 and 2. Now, I don't have the TV show that spawned these movies in front of me, but The Equalizer 1 and 2 are, these rebooted a TV show. Now, the TV show came out in the 80s, starred Edward Woodward as an equalizer. He do the same thing Denzel Washington do. I think he had like he was a European guy. I think he had like a English or a British accent, and he, went around helping people, like a one-man A-team, if you would. He just went around helping people, getting people out of trouble. Same as Denzel in the movies. These movies are a direct reboot of the TV show. There's really no mention of that. You would really have to know about the TV show. And the name of this movie with the font and everything is pretty much the same as the TV show. So you would have to know your vintage TV shows to know that. A lot of people did not know this was a reboot to a TV show. These were good. Now, it's hard to say, will two movies be better than a whole TV show? But it's definitely modern. Denzel Washington is definitely a badass, just like the Edward Woodward character was. So am I going to give these a better than the TV show? No, I'm going to reserve that because it's only 2 movies so far. In the TV show, if I'm not mistaken, I think that ran for about 4 or 5 seasons. So this was definitely paid respect to the original source material. The Equalizer 1 and 2. And I also, let's talk about the 2 movies real quick. The Equalizer 1 blows the Equalizer 2 out of the water. Equalizer 2 was okay, but Equalizer 1 was much better than the first one, in my humble opinion. So that's the Equalizer. Not better than the source material, not worse. Right there. Now, let's talk about, here we go, Blade Runner 1 and 2. Well, not 1 and 2. Blade Runner Original, Blade Runner Remake. Without going into too much on these 2, the original was better than the remake. The remake, in my opinion, was, I fell asleep on it. And that's sad. I actually fell asleep watching this. It just wasn't good. This one kept me entertained and up throughout the whole movie. So I'm going to go ahead and give the Blade Runner 2049 a fail when it comes to stacking up to Blade Runner. Next up, let's take a look at, also honorable mention. I have them and I didn't pull them. I'm not going to stop the video to get them. Honorable mention to Total Recall and Total Recall Remake. Total Recall just blows Total Recall Remake out of the water. Total Recall was Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Total Recall Remake was, forget the guy's name. He had a nice little run there for a minute. He played in Daredevil. He did a couple things. Colin Farrell. Colin Farrell was the protagonist in the Total Recall Remake. It was okay. I think they had Kate Beckinsale in there. It was okay, but it just couldn't measure up to the original. Sorry. So honorable mentions to those. I have both of them behind me. I just didn't pull them for the video. We're going to talk about Ninja Turtles. Now, this is the 3-pack with the original 3 films. I'm just going to go ahead and put this aside real quick. Let's see here. Let's pull the first movie out of this box. So you got Ninja Turtles, and then you have the Bay Turtles. The Bay Turtles wasn't bad. Now, if Michael Bay would have had his way with this, he would have totally destroyed this franchise. He was going to make the Turtles aliens. I don't know if you guys heard about that little controversy, but the fans fired back, and I think he did an overall pretty decent job with this. This movie got a lot of flack, and to be honest with you, I don't know why. I thought it was pretty good. Now, the original was, in my opinion, was better. It was a better movie. This was a better looking movie, obviously, but this was a better movie. The material was better. This one here, this one here, I don't like what they did with the Shredder character. I do like the fact that Bebop and Rocksteady was in here. But the Shredder character, they did way too much with the Shredder character. They just ruined that character. I think if it wasn't for what they did with the Shredder character, because the Splinter character was excellent, to me, the Turtles were good. The costumes looked a little weird, but for the most part, they was okay. All the characters, I think the girl, Fox, she did a really good job in her role. It was good. I just think they kind of ruined the flow of the movie a little bit because Krang wasn't in the movie. Shredder looked just way over the top. But other than that, I think this was a good film. And I would say, as far as it being better than the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, I'm going to give it a fail when it comes to that. It wasn't a good, and this was not a reboot. This was a remake to this one, and it failed. So that's that. Next up, let's put this over here. I don't have the original in front of me. I think I have it somewhere in the house. My daughter had the Shirley Temple box set, and I do believe Annie was in there. this movie was pretty good. This was a remake of Annie. This went in a totally different direction, as you can see. There's an African-American girl playing the role of Annie. You got Jamie Foxx. You got, it's a different, this is definitely a remake. It's not a reboot, of course. And this was a pretty good remake, in my opinion. I'm not going to say it was better than Annie. It was very, very different. And I'm going to go ahead and give Annie, the new version of Annie, a tie with the original. I got to look at the original one again, because I saw this one not too long ago, and I got to look at the original. I saw bits and pieces of the original with my daughter. I didn't really sit down. It didn't really keep me there. So I can't really say if this one is better. I know it's very different, obviously. So this is Annie. This is the remake to Annie. And it went in a very different direction. Let's see. It has some stuff fall here. Let's pick this up. Okay. Hold on, guys. Just trying to get organized here. We got The Thing versus... So we have The Thing, the original Thing by John Carpenter. And we have The Thing This is a remake. Both of these were good. This one got a lot of crap. And I don't know why. It was good. Was it better than this one? No, it wasn't better than this one. It was a really good remake. And I think, again, like I said before, I think people go into remakes and reboots with the wrong expectation. People will say this wasn't as good as this one and start trashing the hell out of this one without watching it for what it's supposed to be. This is not supposed to be better than this one. I don't think when they did this one, it was to say, we got to make this better than the original. They said, let's go ahead and remake the movie for a modern audience. And that's what they did. So I'm going to go ahead and give The Thing, and I've always been a fan of this movie since I saw it. Huge fan of this movie. Not so huge of a fan of this one, but a fan nonetheless. So I'm going to go ahead and give The Thing remake a solid tie. Not for tie as in the quality of movie, a tie for being a pretty solid remake. It is a solid remake. It's not better than the original. There are some remakes that are better than the originals. We just looked at a couple. This isn't better, but it's solid. So I'm going to go ahead and give this one a pass. So we're going to do another cartoon, guys. We're going to take a look at the original Thundercats series versus the Thundercats reboot. This is a reboot because it doesn't remake the original Thundercats. It just does it. The story goes in a different direction. It's not true to the source material. It's probably maybe 15% true to source material, but that's not enough for me to call it a remake. This is definitely a reboot. The audiences and the critics didn't like the way this one went. I thought it was pretty good. Too bad it only got one season. It just wasn't. It just went too far away from the source material. I think if they would have kept this a little bit truer to the source material, they would have made some things happen with this because it was actually pretty good. So this is the Thundercats, the new Thundercats versus the old Thundercats. And I'm going to have to go ahead and give the new Thundercats a fail when it comes to lining up with the original. Now, Thundercats, it wasn't bad. I actually enjoyed it, but it was just too far away from the source material. We're going to take a look at one of the most controversial remakes, reboots, whatever you want to call it, in the last 10 years, I guess. Maybe even more than that. This has got, there's three that really stick out in my head that had a lot of buzz around them. And that's going to be this one here, The Red Dawn, and The Thing. So without further ado, we're going to take a look at, now, for the sake of the video, we're just going to do RoboCop. But I do have RoboCop 3 and RoboCop 2, RoboCop 2 and 3 here. I have them all on DVD. Now, for the sake of the video, let's take a look at this RoboCop remake. Now, let's go ahead and look at this one, because this one there was a lot of online beefing on this one, and I was part of the online beef. All right, let's start at this. Let's start at the very top of the ticket with this one. Murphy's death. Come on, man. Come on. I mean, look, this guy in this one Alex J. Murphy had a horrifying death. He was literally shot to pieces with shotguns, assault rifles, and then finished off with a Desert Eagle round to the head. Come on, you don't get no more brutal than that. It was brutal. You saw the bullets smoke. You saw his body laying there smoking and steaming from the bullets. It was just brutal. But that brutality is what set this movie up to be the classic film that it is. This one, they could have really built upon the original and made a movie that was better than the original. They could have. Now, the guy who played RoboCop, I forget his name in this one, he's no Peter Weller, and that's why I think RoboCop 3 failed, because Weller didn't jump back in the suit. And I think 3 was just horribly written. Now, believe it or not, if I had to compare this one to this one blows this one out of the water. This was garbage. I don't even know what they was thinking when they put this one out. RoboCop remake. So the death was no good. Him getting blown up, that was no good. The fact that they kept the human hand, that was no good. Because remember in the first RoboCop, the original RoboCop, they was going to keep the hand, and the guy, I forget his name, he was the director of the RoboCop project. He said lose the hand, and that was a good choice to lose the hand. The relationship that he had with his wife and son, I was okay with that. That was cool. I didn't have a problem with that. The Samuel L. Jackson character was amazing. The Michael Keaton character was pretty good. He did a good job as the guy over OCP. The guy who played RoboCop, the guy who played what was his name? The bad guy who didn't like Murphy in this one. What was his name? He was in the cartoon. He was in the RoboCop animated. But anyway, he did a good job. Gary Oldman did a really good job as like the doctor, the technician, the lead technician, lead doctor, lead scientist on the RoboCop project. It's just this one, the black RoboCop armor, I liked it. A lot of people didn't like it, but you saw at the end he was in the proper RoboCop colors. I was hoping for a part 2 to this one. It was, to me, I thought it was good enough for a sequel. I don't know how well it did in the box office, whether or not they would have approved it for a sequel. I don't think this is going to get a sequel. With that being said, because I don't think this one is going to get a sequel, I would love to see them really take their time and hire somebody to really get the RoboCop vision to give us a proper RoboCop reboot or remake. I would love to see a remake to the original RoboCop, and I want it to stay at least 80% true to source material, 75 to 80%. You're going to get a little deviation because of just the amount of years in between them, but I would love to see a RoboCop film come out and stay about 80% true to source material. This one did not. I didn't think it was terrible. I thought it was pretty good. It's just if you compare this to this, it's not even close. It's not even close. It's not even close. With the new technologies and everything, what was one of the biggest downfalls of this? They didn't have a bad guy in there like Clarence Boddicker in the first one. It's just too many things to list why this one will never be anywhere near the quality of the first one. So that's RoboCop reboot. I'm going to give this a big fail, a capital F fail to the original. Real quick, we almost done, guys. I don't have none of the original Death Wishes. I'm hoping to rectify that soon if I can grab me a box set with all the Death Wishes in it. So far, I've been only able to find sets with like 3 or 2, 3, and 4 without the first one in it. I hate when they do that, but I'm hoping to be able to grab that sooner or later. But until then, this is Death Wish. And for those of you who are familiar with Death Wish with Charles Bronson, this is a remake. This is not a reboot. This is a remake to Death Wish. It wasn't good. It just, Bruce Willis is a good actor. This is his kind of movie, but this wasn't his movie. It just wasn't good. It's just, when you think about the original Death Wish with Charles Bronson, this doesn't stack up. It doesn't come close. It's just, it's a sleepy time movie, to be honest with you. I threw it in my collection because I found it dirt cheap. The A-Team. Now, this is a popular reboot reboot to the A-Team TV show. And I got to be honest with you guys, it doesn't even come close. It doesn't even come close. The casting was great. It wasn't good. When you think about the A-Team, the 1980s TV show, the A-Team, this wasn't even, I mean, you got great talent in here. All these guys, they looked the part, they played the parts, it's just the movie wasn't good. So that's it. That's the A-Team. Now, with this movie standing on its own merit away from the TV show, was this a good movie that you could watch and enjoy? I think so. Where would I put this? On a scale of 1 to 10, probably at about a 5. 4.5, 5. We're going to talk about the original Halloween and the Rob Zombie reboot to Halloween. This is a reboot because it stays true to the source material, probably about a little bit under that 80%, but it does it in a way that's better. And let me explain to you. This is one of the few reboots, in my opinion, that's better, not because it's more modern, because the story was told in a better way. So let me explain. For this one, we're going to put the original down. We're going to put the original down. So far, we've been putting the remakes down. Or no, we've been putting the reboots down, whatever. So we're going to take a look at this reboot. This is the Rob Zombie version of Halloween. This tells the origins of Michael Myers. It does it in a way that this one does not. This tells it shows all the killings. It shows him in the mental hospital. It shows him meeting Loomis. It shows Loomis trying to make the breakthrough. It shows how evil he is. That he's pure evil. He has no nothing. This one alluded to it. But this was good for the time. Trust me, this was fantastic. And it still is good. But this one really tells the story. And I don't know why this movie didn't get way more acclaim than it got. This was good. Now, I will admit, Rob Zombie, he did a good job with the second one. That was good. But there was some stuff going on in the second one I didn't really care too much for. There was the sequence with the lady in white. I think that was his mom or his sister or something like that. That could have been left out. But this was really good. And I'm going to say, far as this stacking up to the original, Halloween, the Rob Zombie version was definitely better than the first one. It was definitely a better movie. It went into more detail about Michael Myers. So, big thumbs up to the Rob Zombie version of Halloween. Now, last but not least, we're going to take a look at It and It Remake. This is a remake. It's not a reboot. This is not trying to take that story in a different direction. It's staying very true to the source material. This is within that 80% acceptable rate of a remake, in my opinion. It stays very true to the source material with the kids, the Losers Club, with Pennywise. Now, of course, it's different because it's a big time split between the two. But would I say the remake is better than the original? Yes, I'm going to go ahead on the record and say that it was better. This Pennywise was very scary. This Pennywise was scary back in those days, and he's still a little scary now. It's hard for me to say which one, to be honest with you. Let me just take that back. Let me step back a little bit. It's hard to say this one is better than this one or this one is better than this one. They both did a good job. This one was very true to the source material. It's just that Mr. Skarsgård did a hell of a job as Pennywise, and so did this guy over here. I just don't know. I'm torn between which one of these is better than I just don't know. But I like what they did with this one, how they broke it up into 2 movies. I didn't see Chapter 2 yet. That should be on DVD and Blu-ray within a couple months. I would imagine probably by Christmas time, this one will be available for me to get on Blu-ray, and I will be getting it as soon as it come out. And I would have to watch it, both parts, because this one came out with both parts. This was a TV miniseries, and it came out with both parts all at once. So I have a fuller sight picture with this one that I don't have with this one. So I'm going to reserve judgment to say this was better than the original because I didn't see both pieces yet. So, but for right now, I'm going to say that as it sits right now, this first piece is better than the first piece on this one. I got to see the second piece for this one to make a total decision. But as it sits right now, It Remake and It Original, I think they're pretty much tied. Nobody wins, nobody loses. So that's just my look at some popular reboots, remakes versus originals, what I think. I have plenty more in my collection. There's more to even talk about that I don't have in my collection. That is a big topic in the movie community, in the DVD and Blu-ray communities right now, especially when you go to the little mom and pop stores and you pick up a remake and you start talking to staffers at the stores and stuff. It's just a great conversation to have. Me and my wife talk about remakes and reboots all the time. Where Hollywood increasing and stepping up their reboot and remake game is going to be a hot topic for a while in the movie community. So what's your thoughts about reboots and remakes? What's some of the best reboots or remakes that you've seen? What's some of the worst? Drop it down in the comments. As always, thanks for stopping by the Movie Bay. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for your support.